Good morning. Welcome to the Autodesk booth. My name is David, and I'm going to spend the next half hour showing you how we can harness the power of Smoke Advanced to tackle some of the everyday challenges in post-production. Now, if you're an avid DS user and you're uncertain about the future, this presentation is very much for you. You're going to see how easily it would be to migrate to Smoke Advanced, and also how easily Smoke Advanced can integrate into your existing post-production workflow. Now, that said, Smoke Advanced is part of the Flame Premium brand family of products such as Flare and Luster. So if you're a seasoned smoke artist or a flame artist, do stick around. There'll be plenty in this for you. Let's start by looking at the commercial I want to feature in this presentation. This is a really nice BMW commercial from our friends at Carbon VFX.
This holiday season, make a resolution to hug more. Corners, that is. Hurry in to the BMW Happier New Year event and make a resolution you want to keep.
So again, thanks to the guys at Carbon VFX for letting us use their material. So let's start the journey of post-production where you usually start it, and that's getting some media into the system. I'm going to go down to my media tab here, Media Hub. I've got some sources here, and they're external to my system at the moment. Yeah, I can still scrub them, I can see them. I can even actually mark in and out points on them before I bring them into the system. Now, this is DNX HD media. Smoke Advanced instantly recognized the file type. You can read the codec there. Now, how do I get them into the box? Well, it couldn't be simpler. I just highlight a few here. I can drag and drop them into my system, go into here, and they're immediately accessible for me to start editing or compositing or doing whatever it is I want to do with them. Now, that's DNX HD media coming into Smoke Advanced, remaining in that with no transcoding, and a complete pipeline of DNX HD on the output as well. Okay, let's move on to the next thing you might want to do in a post-production session, and that's a little bit of editing. Now, I'm going to start in my freeform desktop view. I kind of like this view. I can move things around, order the clips how I like them. Particularly good if you're working with lots of graphics, I find, to organize your clips. And then I'm going to start my timeline just by gesturally throwing a clip down here. And we'll go into a more conventional editing interface, more conventional source and sequence view. So I think if you come from an avid background, you'll be able to immediately jump on here and be productive in the timeline. It really doesn't need much explanation here, does it? Transport controls for source and record, industry standardized insert, overwrite, and replace. Let's do a little bit of editing. Just going to mark an in point on my record timeline, and I can view all my rushes down here and select the clip I want. Let's take this one. We'll just scrub the in point here, marking in, maybe play it down, marking out on the fly, and drop that into my timeline as an overwrite. And yes, I've done an edit. Amazing stuff. But I just want to show you really that you can gesturally trim your shots in the timeline here as well. Or maybe you want to go into a more precise view, go into the trim view up here, just take a couple of clips off, or again, gesturally trimming in the picture area for your cut. Okay, so what I like to do, going back to the conventional view, is whilst my client's chatting or something like that, you can see I've marked a few clips up over here. Now I'm just going to grab these clips in the order I want them and gesturally throw them into the timeline. And this saves me pressing a whole load of buttons over and over again to quickly gesturally build up my timeline. So you can see that I can edit implicitly or explicitly. I can also punch numbers in if you want to edit numerically or gesturally, which is kind of how I like to edit. Not only that, we can also edit horizontally or in fact vertically. Maybe I want to throw in a few shots to build up a comp stack later on, and you can see I can very quickly do that. So complete editing freedom and a very familiar interface if you're coming from the avid background. So one other ingredient of editing that we often like to ignore if you're a visual effects artist is audio. But of course, it's an essential part of editing. Let's just throw in an audio track over here, and I'll bring up my my audio tools. Just while I'm chatting, I'll do a quick mix on this. A really nice, smooth piece of mixing. You can see I'm doing there. Nice. But Smoke Advanced has actually recorded my pen strokes here, and I can replay that back. And we actually have 32 tracks of audio before you even need to think about mixing down. And we've got parabolic equalizers, reverb, all sorts of audio effects to do finished online audio. And you might be thinking, but this is an online device. I do my audio offline. Well, sometimes you might want to do it online. I've done a few network news promos where there simply wasn't time to go to sweetening. Now, in the other 99% of cases, yes, you're going to go to sweetening. And once again, we fit into that Avid workflow. We can export to Pro Tools via AAF your audio for final mixdown. Okay, let's get back to the journey of post-production. Just come out of my audio menu. And we've done a bit of editing. We've done a little bit of audio mixing there, a very little bit. Now, more often than not, you're going to have an offline editorial cut. Now, how do you bring that into the system? Yeah, a little bit of conforming. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is go to grab an AAF created on Media Composer 7, and I'm going to do a drag and drop conform with these audio files, which happen to be in the same place, so that's kind of convenient. So if I just get on with it and stop talking, indeed it is a drag and drop. Now you can conform the video as well like this, but in this case my DNX HD media is in a different location. So I'm going to go into my conform view and find the media and relocate my DNX HD media. Now really all I have to do is tell Smoke Advance what my search criteria are, and you can see it's found all the correct links. There's my complete timeline linked up. Now, if I hadn't been chatting, I've just done a conform from Media Composer 7 to AAF, via AAF, into Smoke Advance. Could have taken me about 3 seconds to do that. And essentially, I'm picking up exactly where the offline edit was. Now, life's not always quite as simple and easy as that, is it? We still use the trusty EDL. And I'm going to show you a quick conform from EDL here. Now, this time, I'm not going to link it to the sources. We'll just load that up into my my conform window. And this time we're going to kind of think about maybe your offline went in this direction, your online went to grading, and you've got the DPX files already in your system. And in fact, that's exactly what I've got over here. So I'm just going to say to this list, look at these files already in my system, change my search criteria to the more traditional source timecode, and you'll see that it's given me a whole bunch of shots that will match on my search criteria. Now, what I really like about the conform menu here is if I touch on a clip here, it will highlight the event in the menu here. And the reverse is true. If I think, what's going on with this event? Oh, it's that audio track over there. So it really helps you with the detective work that's involved in conform. Conform's never been so much fun. Okay, so it's not fun, but you really will get through it very quickly. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got a bunch of matches here with a reassuring green little tick. So we'll link up the ones that look good. And what I'm going to do to help me concentrate on the one that has some problems is hide those ones, and it leaves me just with the problem childs. Now, the nice thing here is Smoke Advance is giving me lots of clues. It's saying, look, you've got 2 matches, and the reason you've got 2 matches is because they've both got the same source code. I can see where the event goes in the timeline, and if I click over here, I can see the potential matches as well. Like, really, conforming couldn't be easier. Then I can make a guess. We've got a couple of different scans off the same shot, and I can ask my client, which one do you want? Force that into the comp, and then I've done my conform. So really great tools to help you with all that, all the problems that conforming can be. Right, so let's get on to some of the more creative stuff. That's just getting your stuff sorted out, really, isn't it? What I'm going to do is open an empty desktop here and drag my media from the library. And this is a nice way to work. So if I make a few errors here, I mess something up, I know I've always got a saved copy in the Smoke Advance library to go back to. Let's put this as my active timeline. Just recap what we've got. We've got really the basic conform here to start now doing some more creative work. And the first thing I can see is that my color grader, they've been a bit sloppy, and they've either forgotten a shot or they went home a bit early or something like that. So I need to match this shot in. So I'm going to highlight this shot, go to my effects bar, and add a color warper to it. Now, to help me match this to the rest of the timeline, a really nice view is to use your Triptych View. And this enables me to grab a couple of shots as reference shots. It can be any shot in the timeline that I can reference just to help me grade this shot and balance it into the timeline. Now, I'm going to start using the menus up here. You may have noticed when I added the color warper that it brought a lot of different menus and functionality right up above the timeline. These are the most common functions, such as adjusting the saturation. I can adjust that without navigating submenus. Now, in this case, I want a more elaborate menu to enable me to do some detailed work, and I can simply go into the full menu if and when I need it. Let's just push up the highs. We'll add a point here, drag that down, get some punchy contrast into this, and I can always scrub my shot to see. And this has got kind of a nice gold in the highlights here. So maybe I want to push a bit of gold into the highlights of my shot. I'll just overcook it a bit there so you can see what I'm doing. And it all helps me match this shot into the timeline. Now, I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. You can see the result of that, where it should be in the timeline. Not my best grade on the fly. But I've got another shot over here which also didn't get the grading treatment. Now, I want to transfer that to this one as a starting point. Very easy to do that. I can just gesturally drag and drop it. Then maybe I want to use my, my heads-up menu just to tweak it a little bit from that starting point. Now, just while I'm here, I'm going to show you something else, a transition effect. Of course, we have wipes and dissolves. I think you'd expect that, wouldn't you? But we're new to the 2014 release. We've got some kind of funky transition effects, such as simple push-ons. Part of the reason we've introduced these is to be compatible with offline. So again, if you set something up like this in the Avid Media Composer, this will be directly translated via AAF into the online. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't done a push-on effect probably since the late 90s. But the nice thing is we're using the action module in the timeline, so you can get in there now and do what an online artist would do, customize that transition and make it something fabulous. Okay, so let's move on to something else. Now, I've made quite a few commercials in my career, and I think 99% of them involve text. So we're going to have a look at text, how quickly you can deal with text using Smoke Advanced. I've got a white background here that needs some text. I'm going to select that, bring up my action module from my toolbar here, just enter into here. I've done a quick setup just to save a bit of time. Now, if you're not familiar with action, it's a 3D environment, but in the 2014 release, we brought this directly into the timeline. So I'll just undo that, and you can see I've done a very basic text move there, simple zoom, and a little bit of a glow going across it using a lens flare. Now, when I come back out to the timeline, I can play that through real time without rendering it, which is a really nice way to work, even though I'm in a 3D environment right in the timeline. Now, I've got a couple of other instances of text that I need to sort out in the timeline. There's one there, and I think one down here. Now, it would be very nice if I could simply populate that with the metadata, and indeed that's exactly what I can do. I've copied the action node down there, and then I've got the same text in every instance of that. All I need to do now is dive in here, change the variable, and I'm done. And you'd go through the timeline and do all that. So I could pretty much wrap that text up in about a minute in my timeline using 3D animated text with glows, not processing. Now, another piece of text we often reluctantly put into our commercials because it kind of ruins them, but we have to do it, is a little bit of 2D legal text. So let's see how we can tackle that. And I'm going to show you some of the new features along the way. We'll put in our legal. I'll just load it up. This is what the agency are working with at the moment. And I do have to, duty bound to say this, that the wheels do come with a BMW. It's just a work in progress legal. However, my client's saying to me, love the legal. Let's just blow up the shot behind it. So I'm going to go to my effects toolbar. We'll add a 2D transform, and I'll start to scale the shot up. And oh, hold on a minute. My text is obviously going to scale too, because I'm building this in the pipeline. But actually, it's not that big a problem. I can reorder the pipeline tree, even though I'm building effects within the timeline, which is a nice way to work. So then I'd go back to my 2D transform, probably try and make a bit more sense of that rescale. Now, I know that's a minor thing, but what's actually happening in the background is I'm building a batch process tree in the background right in my timeline. And if I want to expose that and go into it and edit it, I can simply go into here and open that up. And you'll see what I was actually building. There's my text node. There's my 2D transform. The reorder that I did in the timeline and everything I did in the timeline is an exact one-to-one relationship with what I'm doing in batch. So I can be absolutely sure there's the same thing going on when I go into batch. Let's just add another node in here. We'll add a nice blue steel glow to this. And you can see I'm going from the blue steel to the 2D transform the text, building up my production pipeline. I'm not going to do the blue steel look. We come back out to the timeline, and all of this is now available to me to play through. Again, I can see the result of that instantly without processing anything. And that's all down to the power of the Flame Reactor 2.0, which is new to 2014. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, now you've built up a batch effect, and there it is. What happens if you want to transfer all that to another shot? It was easy with the single effects. Well, actually, I can just pick that up and throw it on the shot before, and you'll see that all those effects are now transferred to the shot before as well. Okay, bit of basic text work. Let's look at some remedial work and some visual effects work. Now, I've got this shot here. Unfortunately, he has a little pimple on his chin, which I want to get rid of. And also, there's a whole bunch of lens flares in this commercial. I'm thinking it would be nice to put one that just comes out and occludes from behind his head, just to blend this shot in. Now, looking at my desktop here, I kind of like to work sometimes in the timeline, sometimes out of the timeline. So in this occasion, I'm going to copy my clip onto the desktop and start to work on it freeform. Now, if I go to my tools view, you'll see that within Smoke Advanced, we have the full complement of creative tools accessible in the desktop. So if you like working process by process in the desktop, you certainly can. Smoke Advanced gives you the freedom to work however you want. Let's tackle the first thing, which is the little blemish on his chin. We'll go into Paint, and I will just resize my clone brush and start to paint it out. I suppose that would be good. And what's actually happening here is that Smoke Advanced is recording my pen strokes under the hood. If you look at the wireframe here, you can see that it's actually recorded those pen strokes. That's the little animation going on there. That's what's happening. Now, it's going to apply all those pen strokes over the duration of the clip. That's not what I want. I want to apply all those paint strokes to every frame in the clip. So I've just reduced my paint stroke timeline down the bottom. The next thing I want to do is, of course, track it so that the paint strokes move with his chin. Let's go into the tracker, right in the heart of the paint module, and track on the rather unfortunate track point there, but we will track that rather quickly. And then when I process this out, you can see it's processing extremely quickly, as you would expect with Smoke Advanced. Back on the desktop, and here's the result of that, nicely labeled as paint as well. So maybe I want to kind of freeform it and style it up a bit. Let's try and do something, kind of make it my own here. We'll put on a nice painterly effect here, a stylized node, and also process that on the desktop. Now you can see what I've done here. I've got the original, I've got the paint, and I've also got my stylized node here. Now I can actually throw all these clips away if I want, because what's happening, even though I'm working freeform on the desktop, Smoke Advanced is recording my every move for me as history in the background. So at this juncture, I might think, okay, I don't want to do process after process on the desktop. I want to go into a procedural environment. No problem. I can switch from this environment to my procedural environment just by dragging and dropping that, and then I'm in a free-form procedural compositing environment. I can do whatever I want. The other nice thing is, what I did on the desktop, as I said, it's recorded and embedded it into the clip. I can always expose those nodes and my desktop works. So I have this incredible freedom to work however I want with Smoke Advanced. And obviously, I don't really want that stylized effect, so I'm going to throw that away. Now, the next thing to tackle is to put the lens flare behind his head. So just to save me hooking up nodes in front of you, I've got one that I've partially built here. I'm not cheating too much. I'm just going to hook that up. We'll go into this node, and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so all I've done so far is I've cut his face out with a G mask because I want to put something behind that. So if I bring it forward so I can put something behind it, obviously the problem there is that you bring it towards camera, it gets bigger. So I don't really want to do that. What I want to do is use one of the many tools in Smoke Advanced to help you integrate 2 and 3D objects in 3D space called Auto Transform. Now if I bring it forward in Z space, Smoke under the hood is recalculating the scale. In fact, if I just spin it around, you can see what's happening. It's the correct size from the camera's perspective. Looks as though I've done nothing. But I have, and that gives me the opportunity to get creative with it. I'm just going to unhide my light, and we'll go to my, my tools bin and grab a lens flare and bring that into the shot. You can see instantly my lens flare is updated, and at the moment I've got just the default lens flare, nice lens flare. This is the great bit, though. I am working in this 3D space. I get this natural and photorealistic occlusion when I go behind him, and in fact I can bring it out the other side of his head if I wanted to do something like that. So just to recap there, we're really working in 3D space. These are not 2D plugins that you might get elsewhere. We have the benefit of real 3D lighting in Smoke Advanced. Now, that's a pretty dramatic lens flare. I don't want something quite as wild as that. So again, the nice thing about our lens flares, infinitely customizable. In this case, I'm just going to grab the iris effect, and we'll get a nice subtle little iris effect up here, and it will just naturally occlude over time. I think I put a couple of keyframes in there, didn't I? Not to worry. So having done that, you've seen how I came out of the timeline, went to the desktop, changed my mind, went into a procedural environment. I'm in the procedural environment. Maybe I just want to make that into a clip. Brilliant. I don't have to come out of that environment to do that. All my views are live. I can go back to my timeline here. I never really left it, in actual fact. Grab the work that I've done and gesturally, or I could mark ins and outs, edit it back into the timeline. Just need to trim it up because I didn't get the duration there. And you can see what I did is instantly updated in the timeline, and I've got my lens flare there. I can see the result of it instantly. So a complete round trip going in and out of the timeline using desktop tools as well, if you want to work that way. Now, the next shot I'm going to tackle is probably something everyone out there has done, I think, is a sky replacement. So a simple sky replacement. But this time I'm not going to come out the timeline. I'm going to remain exactly where I should be, really. we'll take this shot and create a batch effect without leaving the timeline. Now, I do have a setup here. Again, just to save a bit of time, we'll hook up a node here. I've done some of the work in order for me to replace the sky there. So if we look into my action node here, and I go in there, you can see that I've done a little bit of roto work. I've done a 2D, a 2-point track on the car as it bumps and moves around. I also want to track this mask here on the safety barrier to blend the sky in. Now, I can see that even if I take the leftmost point on the safety barrier, it's still going to go behind the car. So that's okay. I'm going to tackle that with an offset track. We'll go in, just grab a single point tracker here. I'll put it as far away as possible to begin with, and we'll analyze it down. And I'll just stop it there, because I can see it's going to go behind the car. And quickly offset my reference. Now you get this really nice visual feedback, and I'm going to say it's telling me that the track will be continued from the end of the string, and I'll grab another point over here, and we'll pick the track up again, and you can see I can track right behind the car. We can also do this in reverse as well. Okay, so that's a couple of points tracked. Come out of my Kia. Now I want to grab the sky. So let's go to my library bar over here, find my sky shot, drag it directly into my 3D compositing environment in action. I'll just repurpose that track. And you can see, scrubbing down, I've pretty much done my sky replacement. I go back out to the timeline, and again, I can see the result of that instantly. I can scrub it, I get this real interactivity and see the result without processing, if that's what I want to do. Now, another challenge on this shot, I've got a lot of camera movement on this shot. If I want to place something in this shot, something in a 3D scene, essentially, or a 3D camera move, let's see how we can tackle that and also remain in the timeline. So I'll select this shot here, go to my effects bar, and grab a 3D action node and apply that to the clip. Now, if we go into the full-blown editor here, I'm going to drag up a analyzer node. Now, this is a 3D camera tracker, new to Smoke Advanced 2014, and I'm using it right in the timeline. Let's just kick the analysis off. So what Smoke Advanced is doing now is it's looking for some 2D track points in the shot. It's going to find those, then it's going to extrapolate a 3D point cloud from that data. And let's take a look at what it's done. So these are the 2D points that it found. It's tracked all those points pretty much in a few seconds whilst I was talking there. And then from that, it's extracted the 3D point cloud to help me recalculate the original camera move. So in this view, what I'm going to do is harvest a bit of data from this as well. We'll grab these points here, and I'll create a point cloud from that data. I'm going to take the average of the point clouds. Maybe one's a little bit wobbly, so it's better to take the data from the whole cloud. You'll get a much more robust track. The other thing I want to do is look through the new camera that I've solved. So we'll look through the camera solve and just see the result view of that. And it's nice that it just leaves me with the data that I'm going to use rather than the kind of overwhelming point cloud data, which, by the way, I can always go back to if I want to adjust the track and finesse it, which I probably would if it was a real job. Okay, let's now bring in a model. So we'll go down to our menu here. We'll import a fully textured FBX 3D model. By the way, these are courtesy of TurboSquid. We want to thank those guys for letting us use their models. We've got a nice road sign in here, and then I can drop this into the shot. Now, I'll just grab the master of axis of that, and using my snap command, harvesting the data of the collective point cloud, I can just drop that into the shot. I might want to scale it down a little bit for size there, and we'll zoom in on my picture. And you can see that I've actually dropped a 3D model into my shot using a 3D camera track right in the timeline. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, that doesn't really look photorealistic, does it? And you're right. You'd probably want to give me a little bit more time to make that look photorealistic. But this could be a typical example of previs. Maybe I want to send my camera track data over to my colleagues in Max or Maya working on the Autodesk Entertainment Creation Suite, let them do the photorealistic stuff, and then I'll bring that back as OpenEXR files and comp it back in Smoke Advanced. So that's probably what I do. Once my client's signed off and, yeah, we do want that signpost in there, that's a great way to work, the collaborative workflow with the animation guys. Now, the last thing I'm going to look at is the pack shot. I've got a couple of challenges on the pack shot. My client wants me to give this a more clean graphic feel, get rid of the practical psych, and take the cars off that. The other kind of thing to note here is that there's a nice camera move on this, which we want to preserve, but it only lasts about 2/3 of the duration of the shot. Now, I'm going to have to do a bit of roto work to take the cars off the background. I don't want to do the roto work after I've done the slowdown, because that will double my work. Who wants to do that? No one likes roto in the first place. So I'm going to show you how I tackled that challenge. Let's bring a setup up here. Now, if we look over here, I did my roto work on the 71 frame clip here in the context of the timeline again in my batch effects. We'll dive into the action node and show you a bit of roto work because I know everyone's keen to see some roto work. So there you go, a bit of 2D tracking, a bit of manual adjustment and so on. Very quick roto I actually did before the show, so it's not perfect, and we'll talk about how it's not perfect in a minute. However, at this stage, I now want to slow the clip down. So I want to slow my 70 frames down to be 120 or whatever it is I need. I can do that to both the fill and the matte concurrently in my compositing environment using a time warp mode. And I've actually done a motion estimation time warp, which if you're not familiar with that, that's morphing to create new frames to get a really smooth slow-mo. That's quite a processor-intensive thing to do. And at this stage, I might think, you know what, I'm going to make that into a clip so that I don't have to recalculate that all the time. Not a bad idea. I also might want to render that, and I'm doing all of this without actually leaving my compositing environment. Now, I've rendered one down here. It doesn't take long, actually. It's a few seconds, but in the context of a demo. And then what am I going to do with this? Well, if we jump forward to what I did with it, I cleaned up the site, as you can see there. But as I said, my matte work, not the guys at Carbon Effects, by the way, they did a great job. My matte work is a little bit dodgy, because I did it in a hurry before the show, as I said. So I'm going to set a context view here. One way of quickly fixing a matte, a horrendous way of fixing a matte, is to shrink it, isn't it? But then you lose all the fine detail. If you've got hair detail, or on this, the wing mirrors would look a little bit weird. A better way of doing that is actually to expand the fill. So let's keep the context view over there. And we'll go into my pixel spread node. If I zoom in here, you can see that I actually have the ability to expand the fill rather than shrinking the matte. And on the right, you can see I'm just filling up the error there. Now, if I exaggerate this a bit on the left, the other thing I really like is I can choose which pixels I'm actually going to expand out to get the best effect in my key. Now, this is really useful if you're doing like blonde, wispy hair and things like that to get a really good fill. And you've got other types of conversion here rather than parallax to get kind of an unpre-multiplied effect in your fill. Now, I'll just ease back on that a little bit, and we'll continue the journey into the action node over here. Okay, so let's zoom back a bit here. The first thing I did was a 3D camera track on my slowed down shot now, and then put my clean set into that to take advantage of that. And you can see that the set is now tracking with the slight camera move, which is nice. And I put everything into a 3D environment. If we just look at my perspective view over here, and you can see what's going on. It's pretty simple at the moment. And if I swivel that around, I've recreated the site, kind of dumped the cars on it. And you might be thinking, well, why did you do that? What's the point of doing that? Well, working in a 3D environment gives you the ability to relight it. I can completely change the mood of the set. Or maybe I want to take that a little bit further with lighting and cast some additional shadows in there. Maybe there's a front light. Well, obviously wouldn't be there. But we could move that light up. So we're casting a shadow up the cyc, rather an ominous Hitchcock shadow, I think. Probably not what you want in a car commercial. So I think you get the idea. But I have this freedom in the 3D environment. I'm just going to turn that off. Now, the other thing my client wants is for me to import an actual 3D rendered logo. So that's exactly what I did. Once again, courtesy of Turbo Squid. We have a nice model flying in there, just a little lighting effect going on behind it, all tracking with my 3D camera move. And the last thing, in any simple pack shot, everyday challenges here, is some text. I've just brought some 3D text in, which you can create directly in Smoke Advanced, done a simple animation on the lines out there. Now, as I said, I didn't leave the timeline to do this. So I'm going to hook this up, just come back out to the timeline, and once again, you will see the result of what I've done directly in the timeline. I can scrub it through, I can play on that, and I haven't processed it. Now, if you think about this, that's quite a lot going on. It's not the most complicated pack shot in the world, but I do have soft edges, pixel spread, I've got 3D animated objects, I've got lighting, shadows, text. It's quite a lot. Yeah, I have this incredible interactivity, and I always see the result in the timeline when I come out of compositing. So one last thing, my client's saying to me, yeah, the agency, they're changing their mind about this one. We want to kind of do something different. So I'm already copying the moment I hear those words, because I know that within the result view here, the result clip is embedded all the metadata and the media that was used to make that. And if I simply double tap on my copy, it will open it up, and everything's there for me to manipulate it and do another version or make the changes my client's talking about. I come back out to the timeline, And we get those immortal words after you've spent half an hour doing something. You know what? I preferred the previous version. And it's no big deal because I've kept that underneath. I can always keep up with my client, keep the room happy. Now, this is not just for keeping up with indecisive clients either. This is actually quite a good way to deal with versioning, whether it's a price point on a commercial or a time super on a network promo. And then when we've finished our job, fitting back into that Avid workflow, we can output DNX HD right from the box as well. And in fact, we never left DNX HD in the whole round trip. So that just about wraps it up for me. I do have a little graphic here. You've seen a whirlwind journey of post-production. We've gone through the really exciting conform side of things, done a little bit of editing, then got very creative in a 3D environment using textured 3D models and lighting, both in the timeline, out the timeline. And you've seen the power of seeing the result of what you do, always seeing that in the timeline. So that just about wraps it up for me. Thanks a lot for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks.